In this video, 3.2a, we're going to talk about graphing functions. When we have a function, like we have this one, f of x equals 2x plus 1, well, we could make a list of all the ordered pairs x, y. Y, when you have an f of x, you could just exchange it for y if you wanted. But I could make a list of all the ordered pairs, and lots of times we'll use a table. So, if x is 0, then I plug 0 in and get that y is 1. And if x is 1, then y is 3. And if x is negative 1, then y is negative 1. And so on. I could keep listing and listing forever, but no matter how many I listed, I would never name them all, because there are infinite of them, right? And so I can't list all the numbers. A graph is kind of a way of showing all those answers. So if I graphed these, I can graph a few of them. Over 1 of 3, because this is the x-axis down here. Oops. This is the y-axis of going up and down, and I can just go ahead and put in as many points as the 1. Right? And if I kept doing points, it would get closer and closer. It would begin to look more and more like the line that it is. And it would go forever, right? It would go forever in both directions. And any point on there would work in that equation. Okay, so that's what the graph means, is that it's a way of representing all the points, an infinite number of points, because I can't list them. Okay, so a line is pretty easy. We knew this was a line, and so after I had a couple points, I could just go ahead and draw a line. It's not quite that simple when we have a little more complicated problem. So here's a little more complicated problem. We have this function, x cubed minus 5x plus 1. And I could make a little table with this, right? And I could name a few. So let's see, when x is 0, we have 1. And when x is 1, I'd have 1 cubed. So 1 minus 5 is negative 4 plus 1, so that'd be negative 3. And when x is 2, I'd have 8 minus 10, so it's negative 2, so that's negative 1. And let's do another one, say at negative 2, that'd be negative 8 plus 10, that'd be 2 plus 3. Okay, and then if we try graphing that, so here's my graph. I can plot 0, 1, and I'd have 1, negative 3, and 2, negative 1, and negative 2, 3. It's really kind of hard to see what that might look like if I didn't already have an idea. But I would probably have to graph a bunch more points. Maybe I could try even some fractions and some bigger numbers, and I'd have to fill it in a lot more, right? In fact, what it actually looks like is this. Okay, I wasn't really close to that at all, but I would have been if I had gotten a lot more. So if you don't know, if you don't have an idea ahead of time, then you really have to plot quite a few points, but we can do it. We can keep plotting points until we get a rough idea. And in another video for this section, we'll talk about some of our basic functions so that once we know them and we have a general idea about them, it will be easier to graph them. So I would expect that you could take a function that you may not know a lot about and get a pretty rough idea and get, plot a few points that you can easily get points. Okay, I would expect you to be able to get points in order to graph something. So we also want to be able to go the other way, right? We want to be able to look at a graph. I don't have the equation, but I want to be able to pick points off of this graph. And you can do that. If you look at, say, where x is 1, that would be right here when I'm showing this vertical line, right, the dotted line here, that would be where x is 1. And it crosses right here. Crosses right here where y is 4. So there's a point on the graph right here where x is 1 and y is 4. So the point 1, 4 is on our graph. Alright, and then I can tell other points from here too. I can see that if I look over here where x is 2, well, y crosses there where y is 5. So the point 2, 5 is on the graph. And so on. I can tell all of them. Now, it's not easy, if I said, oh, well, here, I want to find where 2.5 is. Well, that's not very easy to find on the graph. I could estimate it, but it would be hard. So usually when I'm trying to find information on the graph, I'm looking for numbers that are pretty clear, or I'm looking for an estimate. You can see from this graph how this vertical line is kind of showing where my x is, and every place where x is has to be only one answer for y. That's where we get that vertical line test. Like right here when x is -1 and y is -4, that's really the only point. It has to be just one point or it's not actually a function. Okay, so that's how I can tell something from a graph. So I can look at a graph, I can actually get points off the graph. Okay, here is your quiz question for 3.2a. For this function, f of x is x cubed minus 2x squared. Fill in the blanks for these ordered pairs that come from that function. So figure out what the y would be. Right, and enter that into Canvas.